so that's my question to you. So how do you keep it emotionally based with a point of view in short form improv?
Um, I was. This is. I'm going to answer the question by this circuitous route.
Mhm.
I directed two shows at Boom Chicago in Amsterdam, and they're it's English speaking. A lot of great improvisers and actors came out of that place, and um, we were doing short form, but it was scenic short form. It was sketch. We were writing sketch, and it was also short form games that they had, and they are about the funny. They're about the funny. Right. So a few years after that, I was in Europe, and I said, "What if I come by just to do a workshop?" And they had me come by to do a workshop. And afterwards, everybody kind of wrapped their head around my methodology, and they said, "How do we put what it is that you've worked on? How do we use what it is that you worked on with us into the show?" And my first thought was, you don't, because it's two separate shows. One show is get the laughs out, like games and those sort of things. And the other is exactly what you said. It's a marathon. The short form is really a relay. Long form is a marathon where you're setting out seeds that will grow later on into something. Now, that said, what you can bring to the short form is you can bring the skills that are in the book, which is listening skills, paying attention, making your connecting with your body to tell you when something has affected you and to be affected by that, right? That makes any improviser who is connected to their body and listening to what something comes into their ears, goes to their heart, and it takes their breath away. Now, you don't need long form in order to land on that, right? What you need to be present to your breath, your body, like all that stuff. So that being said, the answer for me is those are two separate things. You have to come at them in two separate ways. So when you're working with a group of people and their focus is short form, you're not gonna be able to do scenes that where the laughs come based upon what you set up earlier in the scene. Does that make sense? It can't happen. It's mathematical. It doesn't fit. Um, but you, but to get that skill set to go to get to know the skill set of how do I create something that can be funny later. Part of it is they're two understanding that they're two separate things and not trying to make one thing fit and the other thing fit, because you cannot do joke, 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 joke in a long form. Everybody will kill you in your cast, and you can't wait because in a short form, because then you can't build anything in a short form because you don't have the time, and it just looks like you're boring or you're pedantic or like you're being dramatic, like all those things. Certainly the dramatic one. But again, I hate to keep saying "but again," but I'm going to say that again. It's two separate things.
Where would you draw the line in time length between short form versus long form?
Short form is an understanding, ladies and gentlemen, and it all comes out probably it's a really good question. It all comes out at who's introing the show. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do for you tonight is going to really make you laugh. You're going to be able to do, and we're going to get suggestions from the audience, and it's going to be really quick. So your Just the Funny has the name Just the Funny in it. And will you do long form in that? You probably will, but the audience is coming expecting Just the Funny, man. And that said, I've also done some really great stuff that was long form, longer scenes there, but it was an understanding. That was the contract that we made, where I am going to do I'm going to do longer scenes, and we're going to build. So we'll do a montage or we'll do some kind of form. So if you have a montage or you have a form, the understanding is it's going to be long form, unless it's UCB, UCB, say, what do they call it? ASCAT. ASCAT, which is like they're doing long form, but it's quick and it's jokey joke. And I'm not saying that in a necessarily pedantic way, but it's like they have a system where it's learning how to be funny. So to answer your question, what's the difference between the two? It's like if it's called short form or called games, you're not going to be able to plant any seeds that you're going to be able to pay off later on, unless it's a callback later on to a scene that you did earlier.
So I guess sometimes where I'm at, it's easy to make the crowd laugh. I think like it's easy to get those jokes. So then how would you apply techniques like from your book to make better short form? And like you, by the way, you sent me on a rabbit hole. I bought Viewpoints. I was digging back into Viola Spolin, like just to keep going. And it's really interesting to see almost like the evolution of it all. And all along the way too, I read Mick Napier's book about 2 years ago. And then, like the more you learn about improv, the less you know, I believe. It's like, it's really
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting thing because Matt Besser from UCB said, experience and read about as many things as you can and find your tribe. Find the one that speaks best, that speaks most to you. And there's a tremendous amount to that. And very often you may not find a tribe. You're going to have to create your own tribe. And that's what a lot of companies that I've been in have done, where it's like, we're not seeing what it is that we want. So we're going to do this and we're going to create what it is that we want.
What really stood out to me from when I read your book and like Mick's book, sometimes teachers will put in your head, you need the who, what, when, where, why, you need a relationship. But like, I'm from New York City where I rode the subway and I've had the craziest interactions with people I have no relationship or prior knowledge with, So
right.
But the way you guys put into words made it explained a lot better,
Right.
But then that's why, like, I totally agree with you. Don't need that.
And what you're talking about, certainly on like the idea of never do a scene with a stranger, then you're never going to do a scene about living in New York because everybody's a fucking stranger. And every interaction that you have with somebody is a potentially really, really cool scene. But if you're inspired on stage to do a scene where, don't start with a stranger, it's like now you got to fucking put yourself in a pretzel in order to figure out what your relationship with this is so that you can do a scene that's inspired by whatever it was that you were fucking inspired by. So to answer your question, the methodology in the book that you can bring into short form is this. Pay the fuck attention to every goddamn thing that's going on stage. Don't accept the fact that you think that you know what the scene is about 4 lines into the scene. You have no idea what the scene's going to become. And you need to be malleable. You need to be water. You need to float wherever the fuck the level of the scene is. You need to be able to surprise yourself. And the more that you get into the idea of, oh, this is a doctor's office, so it's doctor's office scene. It's like, fuck that, it's a doctor's office scene. You have no fucking idea what it is at the beginning of it. Now, granted, in a short form or in a game, whoever you're with wants to get the who, the what, and the where out of the beginning of the scene. Well, then get the who, the what, and the where out of the beginning of the scene, and then make it emotional like at that moment. It's like, doctor, thank you so much for seeing me on such short notice. I know that you've got a lot of people in your waiting room, and I know that you want me to sit in this room with you for a minute, but I got a question, man. What's life all about? And that way you're just using that environment, but you're still getting in there the humanness of it all. But don't do the scene that is expected from you. And I think that that's a huge thing, that when you get a suggestion, take the suggestion and fucking jettison it as soon as you can. Or don't take a suggestion at all, which is really difficult for people who don't have the training to go, or who aren't empathetic to look at their partner and go, oh, they're sad. Cheer up, Bob. Things are going to get better. But it all has to be, justified. But my feeling is take the suggestion and get the humanity in it. Does that make sense, James?
It makes sense. A lot of what you say makes sense. That's why I was so interested in trying to make it out there to see you and work with you more. Well, yeah, of course it makes sense. Like third thoughting things. I find that my favorite improv scenes is like when you give the audience what they want in a way they didn't expect it at all,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I guess sometimes you could say that that's a person's like perfect Harold or something, like when you like, that makes sense. I get that they were doing, or like, I don't know, just like, oh, you make a play on it and then you give it to them at the very end. I think that's kind of, Yeah, like,
I don't. I mean, you read my book. I don't give a fuck about the audience. I just don't care about the
that's so
audience.
funny.
I don't. And so if you don't care about the, to say don't care about the audience, who the fuck do you care about? It's like I care about you and me. We're on stage together. You know why? Because you and I are the fucking experts. We're the goats. We're the mavens. We're the people that fucking matter. The audience doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. And I say that with love in my heart. I know it doesn't sound like it, but thanks for coming to the show. But this suggestion that you gave in the gynecologist's office, we're not going to do that. You know why? Because we have higher standards than that. You give us gynecologists, we'll take it into a doctor's office. It's not going to be a fucking gynecologist's office where it's like, how do you pull the rug out from under because this is what I love doing. I love pulling the rug out from under the audience where they have an expectation of what the scene is going to be. And then we don't give them that expectation. We give them something else. And that something else they're not going to see it coming. And again, in the book but if you take suggestions at the beginning of a scene of who, what, and where, think about it. Those aren't things that free you. Those are things that shackle you because you now have to be in a scene with a doctor at a doctor's office where there's an operation instead of it could be whatever the fuck you want it to be. And the more exposition you give at the beginning of the scene, the more you're going to be doing that typical fucking scene. And if you're going to be doing that typical scene, find a way to get humanity in that scene. Because if you don't, it's like, why am I watching this? I've seen the scene do so much better when it was written. And just fucking write it. Just write it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that those rules are what trip up a lot of like younger improvisers because they feel like we have to force these things. And it feels so forced to have this stranger. Then you have to just give him a name like John. I don't know. And I think like after the culmination of everything, all I feel like you need is the emotional connection, however it is. And then if you have a point of view or something, even better.
You do have a point of view. Your emotional connection is your point of view. My first line of dialogue is, you really need to stop arguing. You really need to stop yelling at me. That's my fucking point of view. Just stop yelling. You really need to stop yelling at me. You better stop yelling at me. Why do you keep yelling at me? Your voice is really loud. Can you bring your voice down so that you're not yelling at me? You're making me scared. Like, boom, new beat, new point of view. But that's the long game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. There are people that you're playing with that it's hard to wrap what we're talking about. That it's hard for them to get what it is that you're talking about. Is that fair enough to say?
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Wait,
using words carefully.
Wait, hold on. Let me get to how I want to say this. Some people you're not going to be able to get through. Some people you're not going to be able to get to. Some people aren't ready to do this other thing. But here's the good news. Some people are. And you already know who those people are. You already know. You've worked with these people and you're like, I like working with that person.
Yeah.
And the other people that you don't like working with, give them what I call the Jewish blessing, which is this: I wish you continued success elsewhere. And then what you're doing is you're going, who do I want to work with? Who are my people? Who can I create something from? Instead of just going, why do we always fight? Why do you always drive the scene? Don't you understand how this works?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always been my feeling, is like, get the people that you like to play with and play with those people. Because if you don't, you're not going to grow. You just won't grow. If there's one person in the group who is constant, because you just need one person to shit in the punch bowl and you can't drink the punch anymore, right? You just need one of those people. And whoever that person is, and they don't get it, and every show turns out to be about them, those aren't the people you want to play with.
Yeah.
Because they're not collaborating.
Yeah. You touched on, I would love to know this, and I asked this from a lot of different people, but like, why does stand-up comedy do so much better than improv, like commercially?
It's jokes. It's jokes. It's fucking jokes. It's jokes. It's jokes. Why does Whose Line Is It Anyway, or whatever they're calling it now, why does that do so much better than any other improv that's ever been? Like, what was it? Thank God You're Here was an improv show they had on television, and it works in Australia. It's a huge fucking show in Australia, but it's not here. Why? Because there's people's attention spans. And people's attention spans like, gotta laugh, gotta make them laugh, gotta make them laugh, gotta make them laugh. It's a commodity. And once it becomes a commodity, the art, ironically, because the art is what it is that makes it all happen, takes a back seat. So, but when you say, how come it does so much better? What you're really saying is, how come it does so much better at the larger venues? How come it does so much better on television or on Netflix or, whatever, Netflix for sure. Why does it do so much better there? Because it doesn't do so much better at Uncle Chuck's Yuck Shack or your local Ha-Ha Club. There's a lot of people there who it's worse than bad improv. Well, bad improv is really, really bad. That's one of the reasons that I wrote the book. It's like, why is bad improv bad? Because, and you said you said it in one way. It's like, because it's inauthentic the way that some people talk. It's just, people don't talk that way. The way that improvisers talk is like, nobody speaks that way. It's so great that you're here at the bar mitzvah, Mom. I'm glad that you were able to divorce Dad. It's like, all right, what do you got? You got the who, the what, and the where at the beginning of the scene. So at the very beginning of the scene, you're forcing people to say things in ways that people don't say things. Mm-hmm. And we give a lot of lip service to the idea of we get a lot of lip service to the thought of start the scene in the middle. So if you get the who, the what, and the where at the beginning of the scene, are you starting the scene in the middle? The fuck you're starting the scene in the middle. You're not. You're starting the scene at once upon a time there was a princess in a fucking tower in a castle. That's no different than get the who, the what, and the where at the beginning of the scene. Yeah. Unless you can finesse it, it's like, so there's ways of finessing it and ways of finessing it. It's like, no, Carl, I'm not going to marry you. Can we just keep watching the movie? All right. So what do we have there? We got the who, the what, and the where in one line, and we have an emotional connection, but nobody's teaching that. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever said it like that before, but does that make sense? That's getting the who, the what, and the where out at the beginning of the scene without it sounding like it's the beginning of the scene.
Yeah. I agree. There's so many great takeaways from your book, like the one on you need movement. And when you wrote that, you could just stand still and say like, I need help. And you're like, I'm coming right over, and you don't move. Hilarious. I'm like, damn, like that's
a dynamic.
Yeah. So like the more you like, I don't know, I clear that, but it's like preaching to the converted here, right? Especially you.
No, I love hearing it. I love hearing it.
But it makes so much sense that I think like one of the greatest things about improv, it's like a puzzle. And I think there's always a way to like figure it out and make that situation unique, funny, and interesting to watch. Like one of the things I picked up along the way is like, why am I watching this? Or like, what makes it interesting? And you touch on that in your book when you're like, oh, great, you're cheating on me, I'm getting a divorce, great scene. Like I've seen that 1,000 times. Or like everyone goes to anger, right? Anger is like the most common emotion. And the dare to be lovely is like a great way to like, just go with it. Like
every once in a while, be nice,
yeah.
But but what you're talking about, James, is having an awareness of what it is that you're doing. If you don't have an awareness of what it is that you're doing, you're not going to be able to build anything. If you don't know what you're doing, where you're going, what you're feeling in that moment, the things that matter, the emotional things that matter, the body things that matter, the dynamics of two emotions going on at each other, that if you don't know what the fuck you're doing, I can't be with you because you're not with me right now. You're with an idea. You're with a concept. You're not fucking looking at me.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, I understand. It's great. Even like there's some things I love in your book, and not that I don't teach or direct or anything, but sometimes you help out students or you give notes. And one of my favorite ones is if you see a teaching scene, just tell them to kiss you. That's fucking great. That's
right.
Fantastic, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Like the moment, but that's what we're talking about here is like somebody starts a scene and you're going to have a knee-jerk reaction to it. And you're going to do a regular scene as opposed to saying, how do I feel about what they're saying to me? Not what am I going to do with it, but how do I feel about it? Not what I think about it. How do I feel about it? Because there's a difference between what I think about it and what I feel about it. And what I feel about it is going to connect us more. What I think about it is going to just confuse me because it's like, I think a million things about it. Which thing that I think about is going to be the thing that I want to do? It's like, fuck, man, already that's a hard sentence to say.
Yeah. No, I I'm with you. I think sometimes like the less you go in with, the better. Even
That's huge.
Yeah, I'm sure we could have a whole talk about the Buddhist approach to improv, but like when you go in, I don't know. They say when you have nothing, you got something. You just like look at your partner. You like use the distance. It makes so much sense. And I don't know how if you still teach I don't know what you're doing now, but like I think that would be the best way, especially with new people. You don't really have to do the who, what, when, where, why. It's kind of like, how does this person make you feel? Just like,
right.
I think that's so much freeing and more liberating,
Right. How does this person make you feel? How is it that they're feeling, and how do you feel about how they're feeling? And then just fucking say that. What is it that you're seeing? Be empathetic. Because if you're scientific or you're mathematical, you can't be empathetic. And what I mean by that is like if you go, oh, I'm so glad that we're at this bakery. I need a dozen bagels. It's like, now you're just telling me what a bakery does. It's like, tell me how you feel about how I feel, and another thing in regards to getting suggestions, if you go, where are these two people? They're at a bakery. What's the one thing we know?
There's baked goods.
That maybe not.
Yeah.
What we do know is they're at a bakery.
Yeah.
There may not be baked goods there.
Right.
So what's the one thing we don't have to fucking talk about?
The baked goods.
The bakery. The baked goods maybe, but the bakery. Like, oh, I'm so glad we came to the bakery. But what the fuck? We know you're at a goddamn bakery.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Can I get a suggestion of location? Bakery. All right, good. It's like, what are you trying to fucking pass off on me? What are you trying to pass off on me? And the moment that we say that, we go, we know that they're at a fucking bakery. And now we're emotionally connected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't have to be mad. I'm just using that as an example because it's passionate.
No, they could be poisoning the things. I don't know. There's a million things, right?
They could be painting the fucking bakery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They could be cleaning up a fucking crime scene. That's fun.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like when I get a suggestion for a bakery, it's like, yeah, you're at a bakery. It's like, look at all this fucking blood. What'd you shoot him for? Like, there's your scene. There's your fucking scene.
Yeah.
As opposed to, oh, these croissants aren't fluffy enough. It's like, God damn it. Ooh, yeah.
So when in your process, like when you hear like bakery and you got to just like being a murder scene, do you just third thought it to like what the heck else is going on in here?
For the most part, if somebody says, can I have a suggestion of a bakery? I'm going to try to get as far away from that as I can. Yeah. And it's also if somebody says, your suggestion, there's a difference between these two. Can I get a suggestion for a location? Bakery. Okay. That's one. Where are these two people? They're at a bakery. There's a difference between those two. Can I get a suggestion for can I get a suggestion of location? Bakery. That doesn't mean they're at the bakery. It's just a suggestion for the scene. Mm-hmm. Where are these two people? Bakery, that can't be denied. I know that I'm picking hairs here, or whatever the fucking phrase is, I know that I'm doing that, but it's like, if you give me the suggestion, like, can I have a suggestion of a location? Bakery. This is the scene that immediately comes up to me. You're in labor, Mrs. Johnson. You're just in labor. Now, why is that? How is that? How is that connected to bakery? You got a bun in the oven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? And the one thing that I don't want to watch is the fucking bakeries.
Yeah, I hear you. So, no, so I wanted to talk to you because I started doing a lot of these longer form stuff in short forms, and I was just being like, think over dramatic, like they try to hit you with that funny line, and I'm just like hitting them with a deep thought, but I guess it's like, time and a place for everything.
Well, but there's also this, James. It's like if somebody comes at you and you got a deep thought, don't have a deep thought at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Build towards that deep thought. Make whatever it is that you're thinking your point of view, and let them do whatever the fuck they're gonna do. And anyway, I feel like I interrupted you, but
No, it's fine. Like I actually, one of the things I've been trying to implement is the sister line stuff at the top.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, because sometimes, yeah, like people just start hitting you with a, you know, the quick joke or something, right? And I'm just doubling down on my point of view, you know, right? And then you go from there, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah, the sister line. I got to tell you, of all the things that are in that book, the sister lines really rings true for fucking everybody because it makes you hold on to your point of view.